All right, all right. Hope you all are doing very well. Because, oh my gosh, today has been a day. Just way too long for me. There's just a lot of work starting to pile up, and oh my god, I was so frustrated. The last, like, 40 minutes, I was working on a report for, basically, like, whenever I am having to, like, whenever we send products out to people, it goes through like a process where it gets approved, then I send it off to people, and then they upload it, and then basically everything gets sent out, whatever. So that process, like that report, is like there's like automated shit that goes on behind everything, and that all happened. But I then couldn't export it to myself to make sure it worked, like to make sure like it's going to get sent off properly. It's like I'm sitting there like having to like redo this thing by hand. And just as I finish, lo and behold, it freaking works. I'm just like, all right, that's so fine. I'm okay. But was it? I thought it was kind of fun. So like I'm helping with interviews too. And oh my gosh, this person I interviewed today had like an interest, like listed out their interests, and one of them was anime. And I tweeted out, you guys might have seen this, of basically, yeah, if someone lists, an interest in anime, is it okay for me to request their My Anime list to properly judge them on their anime tastes? I don't know. I'm kind of leaning that way. I feel like anime taste is not a protected class. Oh my gosh. But either way, so tonight we are jumping, while we aren't going right back into Dark Alliance, we're saving that for every Tuesday, because we're gonna be playing that with Miss Magitech, the legit Glorious George, and myself. We'll be jumping into Nier Replicant tonight. We have B-side, which is Kaine's story from where we left off. Basically, after we've reunited with Yona, Kaine has gone off on her own to do God knows what. But I'm fully prepared to just absolutely be destroyed emotionally again. And yeah, I think it's time we do that. I was also debating on like checking out diving into the new Dota update, because I mean, there's a new Dota update. Like it's basically what would be the time step address frame rate uncapped disabled. What? It would be what the TI patch is. Well, update. There's basically a battle pass, a new mini game, and a bunch of new cool stuff, but whatever. I might start to check that out with some coworkers after work. But I didn't have time today. I needed to take a nap. Like, what did I do? I finished work around 6, while everything's like going through the automation process, and then okay, hold on. Aww. That's so sweet. I'll do it. Oh, I should move my camera up. We'll do it right here. And that way you guys can actually see everything. There we go. Now that should work. That should be okay. The sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified the sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Thin wisps of smoke streamed from the huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour I was now wandering slowly toward the wooden, hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of the town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as any could remember, and stared. This child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Those traits combined with pale white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then I... The child blinked. The rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. Come on. Come on! The child felt a slight breeze and watched the vein slowly creak to life. Spinning its way for the moment, it slowly settled, the beak pointing firmly toward the east. The east? Really? Before the vein could move again, a jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground as hail of stones began to fall around. Oh no! They found me! A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Yahoo! Kaine! The voice belonged to Demo, worst of all the bullies in the area. As Kaine struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye and blurred her vision, but she could make out the shapes of Demo and his usual gang of idiots. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by Kaine's seeming indifference to the blood dripping from her face, but quickly regained his bravado. What's a freak? You like the rain? You think getting all wet, or you like getting all wet? Or did you finally decide to run away from home? Though she knew it was futile, Kaine turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled around her, cruelty burning in their eyes. Kaine knew those were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to this sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. While some villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. In a society ruled by superstition and fear, Kaine was something to be hated, and if possible, destroyed. I didn't say you could leave, freak. Demo's words chewed at her like a worm through an apple. You can't hurt me, she lied to herself. Be strong. Be brave. He can't hurt me. He can't hurt me. He can't hurt... Oh, look! The little freak's gonna cry! What's wrong? Are you sad that someone hates you and wants you dead? Kaine prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from a world that seems to have no place for her. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Demo crept even closer, the clouds began to thin and the rain slowed. Even the weather hates me. I'm useless. A failure. I wish Demo's rock had taken my head off. Kaine couldn't meet Demo's leering gaze. She lowered her eyes and stared into the muddy ground below. The bully moved forward until he was inches away. She could smell the scent of old meat on his breath. The boy grabbed Kaine's face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open. Show me! No. Did you just say no? Demo grinned evilly. You don't say no to me. No one says no to me. Not even taking his attention from Kaine, he yelled to his cohorts. Come on, guys. Let's give the freak what she deserves. As soon as Demo finished, kicks and blows began to rain upon Kaine. Demo paused, still grinning as Kaine curled into a ball and tried to make the pain stop. I don't get you, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are. Kaine ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane. He continued to point east, as if supremely confident of the future, about the future it had chosen for her. Go home? Yeah. That's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to. Freak! The chanted the children. Freak! 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 Kaine closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. As the clutching hands of the children closed around her, she bent her mind to the sound of the rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to terrified cries, she dare open a single blood-caked eye. Kaine was shocked to see Demo sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. She could see blood welling from spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my god, he's crying. He's actually crying! Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began to easily shuffle away from Kaine. But the young girl, was the least of their concerns. Instead, their attention was wrapped on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a voice thick with rage. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kaine again, I'll do far worse than throw a rock, and you can count on it. The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand of Demo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think to protest, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth. Ow! He screamed, leaping to his feet. Stop it! What are you doing? Quit whining. Ain't no one ever died from a scratch. You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch. A big one. That thing could have killed me. The old woman shrugged. Death is the best cure for stupid. Demo's face twisted with rage at her words, locking his eyes on Kaine. He took a step backward and spat on the ground. Get out! Leave the village! No one wants you here! Either of you! Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Demo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked out a single laugh. Look at the fat boy go! Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight. The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Sorry, I thought I heard my cat just jump onto something. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders, and produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting the blood on her forehead. Oh, Kaine, she said, why don't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot. The words of her grandmother stung Kaine, and she turned away. Don't be nice to me, she said. I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore. Her tears, held in check for so long, finally began to fall on the muddy ground below. Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead. As Kaine's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman of surprising strength. Kaine found herself unable to turn away. Don't talk like that, girl. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath. Understand? The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice. You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kaine. You know because you survived it. As the words hit home, Kaine was struck by the force of her love for the old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother. But when her parents died, the woman quickly accepted her as her own. Grandma, as Kaine called her, was a cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence. And the first few years together had not been easy. But with each year that passed, Kaine and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud with tears and blood caking her face, that Kaine truly understood the depths of her affection. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen death, who had fought through all these things and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kaine's pain and loneliness, it was her. Did I make you sick, Grandma? Of course not. Don't be an ass. Kaine drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered. But my body is not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't... Hush, interrupted Grandma. I'll not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you. And if folks have a problem with that, they can just go to hell. With that, the old woman reached out and placed a wreath of dried flowers in Kaine's hair. The skill it took to bend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable. And the beauty of it made Kaine want to cry all over again. Gosh. These are lunar tears. Oh my god, just like we gave her. Grandma, you made this for me? Lunar tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without seeing one. And yet her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kaine reached up and touched the wreath as if she couldn't believe it was real. Where did you find these? Stumbled on them while I was out doing the shopping. The old woman turned away as she spoke, leading Kaine to suspect the search had been much more difficult than she was letting on. The pains she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flowers used in its constructions, made Kaine's heart hurt. She reached up, gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers. Didn't quite turn out right, said her grandmother as she squinted at it. These old hands have trouble with delicate work. But it sure looks good on a pretty girl like you. Kaine blushed and turned away. You think I'm pretty? Of course you are! What a fool thing to say. Thank you, Grandma. Her grandmother smiled. We're gonna be fine, you and me, she said. Long as we got each other. We'll be just fine. Kaine took her mother's hand in hers. The two of them struggled to their feet. As they began to walk home, Kaine gripped the hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kaine stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin in lazy circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped. I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me, and that's enough. Even if it's us against the world. Kaine let her gaze drift up past the vane and into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed for home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. Kaine's dreams, daily life. In the distance, Kaine heard the steady sounds of an axe striking wood. The noise had a purposeful quality to it. She was hearing a master woodsman go about his work. The firewood being produced, however, was far from a work of art, as could be. Pieces of every shape and size were being flung about a barren yard with wild abandon. Anyone trying to stack wood would probably die of frustration before the job was through. Stupid piece of shit axe. Kaine's grandmother flailed away with the axe, filling the air with both splinters of wood and words that would make the most hardened sailor blush. Grandma! Called Kaine. That you, Kaine? Yelled the woman, taking her eyes off the wood for a moment. Don't get too close or I might take your goddamn foot off by mistake. She brought the axe down on a piece of wood, sending chips flying in every direction. One spun past Kaine close enough to her to hear the whistle, at which point she decided to step back. Once she scuttled past a safe distance, she cupped her hands around her mouth and shouted, Grandma! Do you need any help? I can get you water or lunch or a new axe or something. The axe, poised for another wobbly blow, paused in midair. The woman considered her granddaughter's offer for a moment and smiled. Tell you what, since I'm doing such a piss-poor of chopping, why don't you come here and take over so I can go get the water? Kate's been restless lately and I don't want you running into one of them bastards. Relinquishing the axe, her grandmother picked up a long pole with wooden buckets on either end. Gathering water was by far the more difficult of the two jobs, but Kaine knew better than to complain. Once Grandma's mind was set, there was no change in it. Kaine did her best to help with chores, but Grandma took every task that required travel to the village. Though she had a long list of plausible excuses, Kaine knew the real reason. She didn't want her granddaughter to be taunted and harassed by the villagers. Once Kaine moved in, Grandma decided to take up residence a good distance from the area. Out of sight, out of mind seemed to be the best policy when it came to the villagers and her granddaughter. And rare were the days when any but the two of them could be found on the rocky acre of land they called home. Connie enjoyed the solitude, but harbored a secret resentment that her grandmother was forced to spend her golden years in such a place. After watching her grandmother leave, Connie turned her attention to the task at hand. She had never chopped wood before in her life, and soon discovered why the old woman hated the chore. Swing after swing of the axe produced only a tiny crack in the wood. When she finally managed to connect with a solid stroke, the tool embedded itself into the log and refused to budge. Frustrated, Connie swung the axe around her head and threw it, log and all, across the yard. Damn it! Crap. She suddenly understood the joy her grandmother felt in a good curse. Happier now, she picked up the axe, forced it from the wood, and resumed chopping. She had a natural skill with the blade, but the task was challenging, and blisters soon began to form on her small pink hands. This was tough. My logs were all weird sizes. Spitting on her palms and ignoring the pain, Connie redoubled her efforts. Just as she was developing a rhythm, Grandmother returned from the village. Setting down buckets with a small sigh, she took one of the logs and coughed out a wheezy laugh. Pretty clumsy, girl. You better practice if you... Her grandmother suddenly collapsed to her knees, causing one of the buckets to wobble precariously. Eyes wide, Connie dropped the axe and ran to her grandmother's side. Grandma! The old woman shook her head and pointed a trembling finger at the bucket. Get the bucket. Can't let it spill. Connie steadied the bucket with a foot as she knelt by her grandmother. A small bit of water sloshed. Dude, Perfect Frost Mage, welcome. Thank you for the follow. I'll need to raise that real quick, actually. Hold on. Alert box. We'll just move that up. Whoa, Control Z. Thanks for the follow. Welcome to the stream. Oh my god, I can't click the damn box for the life of me. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Why? What the heck? Hold up. Alert box. Oh, it's locked. That's why. Oh my gosh. I'm like, why can't I move this thing? There we go. Now it won't be cut off. Boom. Easy enough. A small bit of water sloshed over the side and made a new home in the hem of her dress, but kinda didn't notice. Grandma, what's happening? Crazed with panic, she grabbed her grandmother by the shoulders and shook. After a moment, the woman lifted her arms and batted Kaine away. Stop that! Just stop, she cried, breathing heavily. It ain't like I'm dying. Just tired from the trip is all. Kaine desperately wanted to believe her, but one look at the woman's shaking hands and worn face told her more than words could ever. Her grandmother had lived a long and hard life, and finally seemed the bill was finally coming due. The time when her grandmother watched over Kaine was ending. Sooner than earlier of them had feared, the positions would be reversed. The next morning, Kaine came to the side of her grandmother's bed and took her wrinkled hand. Grandma, you're sick. You need medicine. I'm going to the village. The old woman shook her head and tried to rise, but Kaine gently pushed her down. It's all right, she said. I'll be fine. Her grandmother fixed her with a gaze that could melt steel. After what seemed an eternity, she finally lowered her eyes and sighed. Well, I don't like it. God damn it. But I guess I should quit being so stubborn and let you grow up. The old woman watched as Kaine strapped on her boots and made her way down the road to the village. Hours later, as an unseen sun made its way across a dark and rainy sky, she was still watching. Kaine moved at a brisk pace, checking her pockets every few minutes to make sure the money her grandmother gave her was still there. Every noise caused her to spin on her heels, making sure she wasn't being stalked by a shade. Or worse, Emo and his gang. But she encountered neither tormentors nor shades, and Kaine finally found herself at the entrance to the village. The few adults she could see glanced sideways at her, muttered to each other behind raised hands before slinking away into the shadows. Her heart racing, Kaine took a series of rapid, shallow breaths and tried to remain calm. I have to prove myself. I have to help Grandma. I have to be strong. She chanted these words to herself over and over as she slowly made her way. Finally, her eyes settled on a rotund older woman who was angrily waving her arms in the air and telling everyone who would listen exactly what she thought of Kaine's presence. "Hey, lady," Kaine said with bravado she did not feel. "Where's the apothecary?" The woman's flabby cheeks shook in bewilderment. "How dare this thing speak to me?" They seemed to say, but Kaine saw that her eyes held a different emotion. Fear. "Yeah, we're both scared, lady. Trust me on this one." "Alright, yes. Hello, kitten." "Which way?" Kaine repeated. The woman pointed at a small building to her right before hitching up her dress and stumbling off in the other direction. Kaine cringed, expecting a stone to come flying from the assembled crowd. But none came. Her mind was filled with a strange sense of pride as she made her way to the apothecary. But a new emotion had little time to take root. As soon as she opened the door, she noticed a familiar customer at the counter. It was Demo. "Hazel, what are you doing, cat?" He's making a home in a box. Like if I posted a thing on Twitter the other day of her hiding in a large box. Basically same thing. He'd clearly been sent there on some kind of family errand because his gang of followers is nowhere to be found. "Oh my god," he sputtered. "I mean, what are you doing here, freak?" The insult delivered without force and Kaine happily ignored it. Searching on tiptoes to see over the counter, she asked the shopkeeper for medication. Barked Demo. "That old bitch finally keel over?" "Go to hell, Demo." The boy's eyes grew wide. They seemed ready to fall out of his head, but before he could let fly a comeback, or worse, a punch, the apothecary told him to knock it off before he kicked them out of the store. Demo slunk out of the shop, cursing Kaine under his breath. Once he was gone, she allowed herself to breathe once more, taking a brief tour of the shop while the owner prepared for her medication. Countless tiny bottles filled the cramped store, each with a label written in some indecipherable language. An ocean of aromas assaulted her nose, creating a scent that was exotic, but altogether unpleasant. But not all altogether unpleasant. Seeing such a variety of supplies gave Kaine a sense of peace. Surely in a world so vast, there would be a place that she could call home. She's still digging at this box, trying to, make herself comfortable. On the far wall behind the counter rested a portrait of a stunning young girl. The picture had once contained bright, vibrant colors, but time had worked its cruel magic. They were beginning to fade. The beauty of the work, however, remained undiminished. "You like the picture?" Kaine turned to find the apothecary with a small vial of medicine in his hand. His eyes were gentle but sad, and they seemed to stare through her into nothing as he spoke. "That's my daughter. I sketched it when she was just a little girl. She's been dead for a long time now." Kaine didn't know how to respond. She just stared at the portrait and tried to come up with the right words. "Pictures are wonderful things." "Oh no! No! It's skip. Right click forces it to skip pages. No! Kaine took an instinctive step back, causing the shopkeeper's face to darken. "Yes, I've heard the rumors about you," he said. It's a small village and word travels quickly. Between you and me, I'm not sure which of them to believe. But also, I don't think they matter much. I know your grandmother, Kali, and I think the way she was driven out of this town was deplorable." "Grandma's name is Kali?" thought Kaine suddenly. She was still mulling this new fact over her mind as she reached out and gently took the crayons from the apothecary's hands. "Your grandmother's an old friend of mine," he said as Kaine scooted away yet again. "I owe her much. I wager she would like it if you drew a picture of her." "Yes, I think she would like that very much." Kaine murmured in a quiet agreement, but inside her heart was bursting. Never before had a villager treated her with anything but complete contempt. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible step, but it was a step nonetheless. And with enough tiny steps, she might one day discover the rest of the world. When Kaine returned home, she found her grandmother asleep in her bed. Her feet were blackened and raw, even bleeding in a bit in places, leading Kaine to think she'd been pacing around the room until exhaustion finally caught up with her. "Cat, you good?" like halfway out the box, giving like little like meh, you just can't reach. Um, you're fine. No. Oh my gosh. She placed the medicine by her grandmother's pillow and turned to leave, but found the old woman's hand clasped around her arm. Back already, are you? Asked her grandmother with a yawn. Come here. Let me have a look at you. Grandma sat up and examined Kaine head to toe. Finally satisfied nothing terrible had befallen her grandchild, she leaned back and allowed herself to relax. Well, how was it? Those bastards give you any trouble? It was kind of fun, said Kaine, with a small smile. No, seriously, it was. Fun, eh? Asked her grandmother in a voice which implied like she believed anything but. Uh-huh. So anytime you need me to run an errand, just let me know. As she spoke, Kaine removed the crayons from her pocket. After a brief explanation of their source, she informed her grandmother that she was going to sketch her a portrait. A portrait of me? Ridiculous. No one wants to stare at a wrinkled old crone. But Grandma, it'll make you live forever. Horse shit, said Grandmother, throwing back the sheet from her bed. Living forever would just piss me off. And put those crayons away and help me with dinner. But Kaine would not relent, and in the end, Grandma found herself leaning against the wall of her house, as posing for a master artist. Kaine took up the crayons and eyed her subject carefully and set to work. Just as her grandmother was about to nod off, Kaine finished the piece. After staring at it for a bit, she released it from her grip and let it slowly drift to the floor. It's terrible. It doesn't look like you at all. I'm sorry, Grandma. I thought these crayons would, make drawing easy or something. The old woman's eyes narrowed at her granddaughter's disappointment. Let me be the judge of that, she said, ignoring the pain in her back as she reached for the paper. The sketch could have been a person's face. It could have been a boulder, a lump of clay, or incredibly misshapen loaf of bread, all rendered in a chaotic array of colors. The old woman stared at the picture for a long time and slowly wheezed out a laugh. Oh, Kaine, she said between the laughter. You truly are my blood. You're as clumsy as me and I love it. But hush. I won't hear any more bull about how ugly you think it is. It came from the heart. I'll treasure it always. True to her word, the old woman gave the picture a place of honor above the kitchen table. In the days that followed, Kaine would often catch her staring at the portrait with a strange smile on her face. An action she interpreted as silent, mocking laughter. A week later, Kaine could stand it no more and asked her grandmother to take down the artwork. Posh, said the old woman. I'll take it down when they roll me off in my shroud. She pondered this for a bit and then turned to Kaine and dropped to one knee. Listen to me, girl. Seeing this picture makes me happy in a way I've never felt before. And it makes me want to go on. So that someday you can feel the same happiness. It was a moment that burned itself into Kaine's memory. A perfect blend of pride and love and joy that came together to form a lifelong remembrance. She swore to never forget this moment, to never forget the old woman who had made her place in the world possible. Time moves on. People and memories move in and out of life like ghosts passing through a hall. But this moment will be different, Kaine swore, because I will remember it forever. Forever. Kaine's dreams. Separation. Oh my gosh, this is so much reading. Give me a second here. Kaine listened to the sound of crackling firewood and stared at the black object on her plate. She'd been pushing it around the wooden disc for a good 10 minutes, ignoring the bemused stare of her grandmother. Finally, she summoned the courage and gave an object a brief sniff. A sharp, bitter scent flew up her nostrils and made its home there, causing her face to twist with disgust. Grandma, I can't believe you want me to eat a bug. The old woman threw some more wood under the cooking pot and snorted. No bug, you fool girl. It's a berry. Why the hell would I be feeding you bugs? Yeah, well, it sure looks like a bug, said Kaine. And I think it's burnt or something because it smells terrible. That Kaine held her nose and threw the berry in her mouth, chewing as little as possible. Yeah. It's terrible, all right. Why, you little brat, laughed the old woman. Look at the sass on you. You've been spending too much time with me, and that's a fact. 5 years had passed since the moment when Kaine's grandmother saved her from the bullies. It was often the way with two stubborn people. The relationship had grown in fits and starts, but moved forward all the same. Meals that used to be somber affairs were now filled with laughter and hurled abuse in equal measure. Kaine could not remember a time when she had been happier. As the years went by, Kaine started to shoulder more and more of the daily responsibilities. Her grandmother's legs grew weaker by the day, and she could no longer do many of the chores she used to take for granted. And so this morning, Kaine lacing up her work boots with a breakfast of burned berry rolling through her belly. "Where are you going today?" Grandma asked suddenly. Kaine looked up surprised. The old woman rarely asked for specifics anymore. "Well, I was gonna go check on the kelma trees and see if they were ripe. I thought we could make some jam or something. Oh, I'm gonna go pick up some flagstones, so I need to take the wheelbarrow." "Flagstones? The hell for?" Connie stared at her grandmother and held out an arm and swept around their home. Constructed mostly of cloth, rope, and rubble, the old place sagged like a boxer in its final round. "Grandma, a dying cat could chew through this house. I'm gonna build a stone wall so that we have some protection." The old woman laughed, exposing her toothless grin to the world. "Goddamn girl. If a bunch of thieves want to ransack this old place, let them come. I got nothing worth stealing anyway. I'm not worried about thieves. I'm worried about the shades. People saw one west of the village yesterday." The old woman tilted her head and stared at her granddaughter. "Well, shoot. I don't know why you have to do it today. We can worry about it some other." "Grandma, no. If I don't go to the kelma trees, we won't eat tonight. And you know that." A confused expression paced across the old woman's face, and for a moment she was a small child lost at a carnival. "Yes," she said after a bit. "Yes, of course. You're right. I'm sorry, kinda. Lately, it seems my mind is..." Didn't finish the thought. Instead, walking over to her nightstand and gently taking the wreath of lunar tears from the drawer. The flower's petals had aged to a brilliant whiteness, and Connie thought it was more beautiful now than the day she first received it. "You're gonna be a true woman soon," Grandma said, and she placed the flowers in the girl's hair. "And so that means less chatter about shades and building defensive walls, and more talk about how beautiful you've become." Annoyed, Kaine reached up to remove the garland, but the look on her grandmother's face stopped her hand. "You're a beautiful thing," said the old woman, "and there ain't another like you in the world. I'm very proud of you." "Okay, Grandma. Enough of the goddamn compliments for one day." "Such a mouth on you. Where'd that come from?" "Gee, I wonder. I'll teach you to sass me, girl," yelled Grandma. Suddenly she lurched forward and grabbed Kaine by the ears, pulling her around the room with a crazed grin on her face. "Grandma!" yelled Kaine in a quacking voice. "Grandma, stop it! What the hell?" The old woman stared at her and blinked, and slowly held out her wrinkled hands as if it was the first time she had ever seen them. I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry, girl. Sometimes my mind just..." Kaine thought the look on her grandma's face was the most heartbreaking thing she had ever seen. "Listen," she began. "Maybe I should just stay home after all." "No. I won't have you stay here to keep an eye on an old was it cogger? An old cogger like me. You go and get your fruit and your wall and whatnot. I'll be fine. Then when you come back, I'll have a nice grasshopper dinner waiting for you." Kaine rolled her eyes and kissed her grandmother on the forehead, made ready to depart, trying desperately to ignore the worry that was gnawing at the walls of her heart. Kaine could feel the old woman's eyes watching her as she moved down the path. "Don't turn around. Don't turn around," she told herself. But in the end, temptation was too great. She spun on her heel, one final look, and saw a small, bent woman standing in front of a ramshackle hut, with a sad expression on her face. God, she looks so old now. It's like the wind could reach down and just carry her away. Kaine worried about her grandmother all day, causing her work to suffer. What little fruit she could collect was tossed carelessly into the wheelbarrow as she found a couple of stones before losing interest in the project. Finally, as dusk approached, she decided to call it a day. Cursing herself for lack of focus, Kaine pushed the nearly empty wheelbarrow back down the path. As she crested the final hill, she suddenly froze in place. The wheelbarrow fell from her fingers and collapsed on its side, sending a few pieces of wrinkled brown fruit rolling back down the hill. Her gaze was fixed on a thick black cloud hovered just ahead. Tracing its path with a finger, Kaine suddenly felt her stomach knot in on itself. No. Oh, gods, no. Her grandmother's house was ablaze, the flames licking up as if it trying to touch the sky itself. Grandma? Grandma! Kaine ran faster than she ever had moved in her life. When she tripped on a stone, went sprawling out into the rocky ground, but she leapt onto her feet and continued running, unmindful of the blood spilled from her woundful hands and knees. She got closer and closer. Kaine's mind began to race in time with her footfalls. It's too dark. It's too dark. Not just the fire. Can't be fire. Too much smoke. Gotta save her. Gotta save her. She burst into the front yard and came to a sudden halt. Her worst suspicions confirmed. The smoke from the fire was mingling with the thick, inky blackness of an enormous shade. The massive creature supported itself on 3 twisted feet and achieved balance through means of a large, armored tail. Scales, horns, and claws sprouted from its body in random, chaotic pattern, giving it the appearance of a lizard designed by some insane god. Seeing Kaine, it let out a roar and flicked its tail, sending small whirlwinds spinning around the yard. For a moment, the creature retreated into the shimmering, inky blackness, as if her mind was unable to comprehend such a thing could actually exist. But then the smell hit her, a blend of rotted meat and excrement. The horror became real once more. The creature bellowed again, and this time Kaine responded with a scream of her own. "All right, you bastard!" she thought, and as her scream echoed out the high cliffs around her. "It's you or me. Let's go!" The shade eyed Kaine with bemused interest. They began looking from her to the house and back again, as if urging her to look in the direction it had so gleefully wrought. With dreadful burning in her heart, Kaine glanced toward the house. Through the smoke and flame, she spotted a small finger struggling to escape the ruins. "Grandma!" The sound of her voice, the old woman began waving frantically. "She's alive!" thought Kaine. "Alive!" Kaine's legs sprang to life as she raced across the yard toward the flaming wreckage of the house. Before she could advance more than a few steps, the shade opening its mouth and let out a roar powerful enough to uproot trees and send them flying. The blast sent Kaine tumbling through the air before smashing against the rocky earth. Stars danced in front of her eyes as she tried to remember how her legs worked. Get up. Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Now! As Kaine struggled to her feet, the shade stomped towards the house and pinned her grandmother to the ground with the tip of a claw. The old woman struggled to move the claw from her stomach, but she might as well have been pushing a mountain. She coughed briefly, sending a small spray of blood into the air, and collapsed to the ground, her energy spent. Kaine lurched to her feet, only to fall back to earth with a gasp. Her ankles were on fire. One or both of them were surely broken. Ignoring the pain that screamed through her body, she began dragging herself across the ground, leaving a drunken trail of dust and blood in her wake. "Grandma, hold on. Just a little longer." Her grandmother's face was turning blue, her eyes rolling back until the whites were exposed. Kaine pulled herself across the ground with a maddening slowness, the distance seemingly to increase with every second that passed. The shade glanced between the two women and flickered out its tongue, its giant mouth turning up at the corners. Short, panting breaths belched from somewhere deep inside its core. Bastard. Laughing at us. She had no idea how such a mindless creature could experience emotion. But there could be no doubt the shade was taking joy in their suffering. "Yeah, I see your plan." The shade moved its claws slightly, allowing Grandma to breathe again. It was clearly keeping her alive, only to snuff out her life when Kaine was close enough to touch her. "I'm gonna kill this bastard." Summoning all of her strength, Kaine rose to her feet. There was a sickening snap in her right ankle as the foot twisted backward. Oh god. But she forced it from her mind and began to hobble toward the monster, pulling a small knife from the pouch at her waist. She leapt on the foot that was pinned under her grandmother. That pinned her grandmother, and plunged the weapon deep. "Give her back!" she screamed, Give her back to me! It was like stabbing a rock. After a few swipes, the knife broke at the hilt with a trembling of the fingers, but the sensation drifted away on the breeze and was gone. And he screamed then, a thunderous sound that echoed off the cliffs and seemed to roll away forever. The shade eased forward, black ichor pouring from its mouth and dissolving into smoke on the ground below. The earth shook with every step as it crept towards its prey. Kane's body slowly rose as if controlled by a mad puppet master. Her arms and legs were bent at impossible angles. Her head lolled dangerously to the side, yet somehow she managed to stand. Staring at the shade, her eyes began to glow with a deep red fire. The creature, so confident just moments before, took a slow, hesitant step backward, trying to discern if this broken human could possibly pose a threat. Kane seized the moment, laughing like a madwoman, she into the air and plunged the shattered hilt of her knife deep into the leg of the shade. The shade shook off Kane like a fly, sending her crashing to the earth once again. Her chest rose and fell slowly, as if a great weight were resting upon it. Moist sounds of pain echoed through her mind. Something warm and thick oozed from her ears. Is that blood? I think it is. I think I'm bleeding to death. No, can't be. Can't die. Grandma told me to live. Deep inside Kane's mind, something finally broke. The sound, the pain, the smoke and flames, all of it faded away until all that remained was a single incantation repeated over and over again. Kill it. 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 I'm not reading all this. Kill it now. As the spark that was kind of slowly began to flicker and die, she felt the desire to kill and her desire to live blend into one. The distance between her heartbeats grew longer and longer and longer. And we're back. Big hugs. It's coming. Oh, hey, remembered that we have the spear. Kateru. Katerute. Okay. Action time. Are we gonna like rush past? I don't know if we are Kaine now or if we are gonna play ourselves still. Looks like we're ourselves. Okay. Quick moment while I remember the controls. How am I supposed to kill this one? Got it, okay. Got it. Okay. I'm gonna trigger something? He's actually dead. There we go. We're still the ones with the book and everything. We're gonna still destroy it all, but I wonder what changes here. We've learned more about Kaine's past and the fact that, like, we gave her, you know, a lunar tear is pretty heartwarming. What the fuck is this? Hold on. And red notifications. Drop frames detected over the last 2 minutes. 5 minutes ago. Disconnected attempting to reconnect.